came from Detroit to Toronto and stayed a week in Toronto. From Toronto he came to Montreal. And for which he stayed 8 hours, including transport to and from Dorval Airport. And I was also on traveling Sankirtan. I was out in the Maritimes. Good thing I didn't bump into you. I was out in the Maritimes. Actually, yes, I wasn't selling incense at that time. I was selling books, and we procured the current temple on Pinov Street. That's another story, but much to my constant consternation, something I don't like to look back on. And Śrīla Prabhupāda was coming, so we had to make preparations, and we drove back. I was with another devotee. As I mentioned, in those days we used to we were quite brave. We were, even as, I remember as we were driving, because we were in a rush to get back. So, I don't know, Prabhupada was already in Toronto. And so maybe it wasn't 100% that he was coming, but then it became for sure. And so we were driving in the car and van, because we lived in the van also. There was 2 of us, and we took turns driving. So, but we didn't stop to change drivers. We just, one driver slipped into the seat and the other one slipped out at 90 miles an hour. Maritimes is a long way away. So, yeah, we didn't stop. We only stopped for gas. And anyway, Śrīla Prabhupāda, there's other things, but Śrīla Prabhupāda arrived, and Uddhama Shloka, the temple president at that time of Toronto, Sripati was the temple president in Montreal. And so we greeted Śrīla Prabhupāda at the temple. There were less devotees than sitting in this room to greet him, and well, there was about this many of us in the temple, and 50-50. And Śrīla Prabhupāda came, and we had Guru Puja, and then he gave typically short class. It couldn't have been more than 15 minutes. Someone mentioned that we taken out the pews, because it was originally a church, then it was a who are those sort of weirdy people with the triangle in the eye?
Masons.
Rosicrucian. Then it was a Rosicrucian church. But we auctioned off all the pews, oak pews. And when Prabhupada heard that, he said, "Why did you do that? You should have left them there. Just leave pews in the temple room." Anyhow, Prabhupada didn't stay very long. Then he had a tour of the temple, which was really the temple room, and an adjoining building, which was the brahmachari ashram, and the ladies were living in apartments, 2 apartments just next door. And in fact, Śrīla Prabhupāda, we'd fixed up what's Prabhupada's rooms, which was actually sort of the priest's room and bathroom, but actually we just temporarily rented an apartment for Prabhupada, as that was bigger and more spacious. So Prabhupada had breakfast, and then I think he took a little rest, and then he had lunch, and he sat out in the courtyard. There's a garden about the size of this room, sort of beside the temple. And he sat out there, and once again there were less of us than here, because devotees were doing things. And then he packed in the car and went back out to the airport. And of course we all followed him out. And so Śrīla Prabhupāda sat down on a seat, and we all sat on the ground. And no one said anything. So Prabhupada wasn't about to start talking, so we just all chanted japa. And then, sort of, I had very, very wonderful transcendental experience that I won't talk about now. But then I thought, this is crazy. I'm sitting here with Śrīla Prabhupāda, and when am I going to be able to speak to him? So I started telling him about Prabhupada. This is Dorval Airport, and I come out here and sell books. And Prabhupada was just listening, and I was saying, and quite often I get sort of kicked out by the police, or sometimes they even take us in as the RCMP. And so then Prabhupada's eyes opened, and I thought, oh wow, Prabhupada's really appreciating. He said, well, if it's so difficult, you could come to India. I said, well, what? Just leave book distribution because it's hard, and come to India. So I thought maybe Prabhupada didn't, so understand, but I just wanted to clarify, and I said, well, it's very good, and come out here, we can do 20, 25 Bhagavatams a day, and but it was a small airport, Dorval, and but yeah, sometimes it gets a little tough. And Prabhupada said again, well, if it's so difficult, why don't you come to India? I forgot what's going on. And so at that I didn't know what to say, so then I just became quiet. And then Prabhupada left and went down the corridor. At that time, I think almost to the plane we could accompany. I mean, there was a certain point where people accompanying the passenger could actually get on the plane. There was no such thing as security or any of these things. So, and then Prabhupada left, and we went back to the temple, and then I asked the temple president, well, Prabhupada said I should go to India.
Who was it?
Shripati.
Okay.
No, that's not what he meant. I said, but he repeated it twice. And then I thought I better ask my GBC. So I asked Jagadish, I said, so, what's this mean? And Prabhupada said, no, it's Śrīla Prabhupāda more appreciates you doing books. So I just forgot it and I didn't go. And so that was 75. And 1981 in the UK, Brahmananda Swami came and stayed in the UK for a year, which was a very wonderful experience. We spent a lot of time together. And I told him this story, because he was there, he was Prabhupada's servant at the time, secretary. I told him that, he just laughed at me. He says, "You're so foolish. Don't you know, Prabhupada had so much problem with Americans in India because they couldn't get a visa. So wherever he'd go in Commonwealth countries, he was just, recruiting devotees. Australia, New Zealand, Canada, England, he would sell the same line to devotees that he could try to get. He said, you should have gone. So that, for me, that lesson was that, all right, we're meant to be submissive and follow authority, but especially something like that Prabhupada said, come. A little later when I was in Chicago, Prabhupada had a system where he expected every temple to send a devotee to India. So from Chicago we sent Tranakarta, and he was there for a little over a year, and then he came back, and from Montreal we sent Priyabandhu. He became TKG's secretary. And Tranakarta would tell stories how different it is that, in the West, it's impossible to see Prabhupada. Impossible. In India, he just walk in his room anytime and just sit down, start talking. Prabhupada was like, he was at home, with his foot up on the table, and very, very relaxed and very easily accessible. So, yeah, when, especially in a certain situation, I think Śrīla Prabhupāda was at that time the same age as I am now, 74, 75, and when you get the opportunity, one should take it. But Prabhupada also didn't want to make waves in temples, so he was very discreet. Although this wasn't so discreet, because we were all just sitting there. Jai Śrīla Prabhupāda ki jai. Repeated the same thing when Prabhupada was, it was like 1977, and he sent out twice or three times globally telegram. That's the only way to communicate. fast, Prabhupada sent out telegrams. Every devotee may come to Vrindavan. And when someone brought up the issue of Prabhupada, what's going to happen to the temples, Prabhupada just said, anyone who wants to come should come.
But it wasn't well known.
Huh?
It wasn't well known.
You know how I found out? Because we were at the airport and Sura came back. He just came back from there, and you know, so he says, you guys are crazy. What are you doing here? Prabhupada said everyone should go. But once again, it was the same story. That no, Prabhupada more appreciates that you do this service. But once again, Prabhupada just repeated it. He said anyone could come because you can distribute books anytime. One person could, two people can worship deities, but never have the opportunity to be with them. So, yeah, and that went on globally. It was the same thing. So, yeah, my lesson from that is that we should take the opportunity when it presents itself. If we okay, now I'm going to go next door, and because I didn't want to carry it in here, and we could watch final lesson. I don't know if you want to see it again. We may not.
You know what I realized today? It was the first time I watched it from beginning to end. I usually can never make it. The first time.
Who has not seen that film? One, two, most everybody else has. Okay.
But, yeah, I can probably do it one more time.
I also received just this afternoon very lovely video put together by Radha Damodar about Prabhupada's visit to the manor. Mostly it's interviews with half a dozen devotees. Very nicely done. It's about 20 minutes. I could play that after. Let's see how we go down with that film. Okay, Jai Śrīla Prabhupāda ki Jai.